The Blackwoods Forest, situated just 50 miles north of Seattle, was a place where daylight seemed to lose its strength. The trees were ancient, their thick, gnarled branches interwoven so tightly that they formed a perpetual canopy of shadow over the damp forest floor. For decades, local urban legends warned people to stay away from the woods after sunset, speaking of a 7-foot-tall, pale spirit that drifted through the fog, leaving nothing but broken bodies in its wake. Most people laughed at the folklore, but 24-year-old Lily took it as a personal challenge. As an ambitious wildlife photographer, she believed the dense fog and eerie atmosphere of the Blackwoods would provide the perfect backdrop for her upcoming gallery exhibition. Her fiancé, Daniel, a meticulous 30-year-old homicide detective, had pleaded with her not to go alone. He had spent his career dealing with the harsh, cold realities of human malice and had no patience for ghost stories, yet the forest gave him an uneasy feeling he couldn't explain. Lily laughed off his concerns, kissing his cheek before packing her heavy camera gear into her truck. She promised to be back by dinner, her mind focused entirely on capturing the raw, untouched beauty of the wilderness. She did not know that she was stepping directly into a trap designed to erase her existence. By 4 p.m., Lily was deep within the heart of the Blackwoods. The air was freezing, and a thick, milky white fog began to roll in, swallowing the path behind her. The silence was absolute, broken only by the crunch of dead leaves beneath her boots. She raised her camera, clicking photos of the eerie, twisted trees. Suddenly, through the lens of her camera, she noticed a distortion in the fog about 50 yards away. She lowered the device, her eyes widening in sudden, sharp terror. A figure was standing between two massive pine trees. It was towering, easily 7 feet tall, draped in tattered, blood-stained white rags that fluttered in the absent wind. Its face was completely obscured by a smooth, featureless white porcelain mask. Lily frozen, her heart hammering violently against her ribs. The entity tilted its head with a sickening mechanical snap. Then it began to move toward her, not running, but gliding with an impossible fluid speed. Panic seized her, and she dropped her camera bag, sprinting blindly through the dense underbrush. Branches tore at her jacket and scratched her face, but she didn't dare look back. She could hear the heavy, deliberate thuds of the entity's footsteps crashing through the bushes behind her, accompanied by a low, rattling sound that echoed through the trees. She tripped over a hidden root, falling hard onto the wet earth. Before she could scramble back to her feet, a massive, freezing hand clamped over her mouth, and a sharp blade pierced the darkness, ending her life beneath the silent canopy. When Lily did not return by midnight, Daniel mobilized a search party. By dawn, they found her truck parked at the edge of the forest, and 3 hours later, Daniel himself discovered her lifeless body, hidden beneath a pile of pine branches. The local police department, eager to avoid a complicated investigation in a town driven by tourism, quickly ruled the death as a tragic, random attack by a grizzly bear, pointing to the deep lacerations on her body. They closed the case file within 48 hours. But Daniel, staring at the clean, precise nature of the wounds, knew it wasn't an animal. Driven by an overwhelming wave of grief and fury, he realized that if he wanted justice for Lily, he would have to find it himself. 1 week after the murder, Daniel returned to the Blackwoods alone, armed with his service weapon and a heavy-duty flashlight. He retraced the steps of the search party until he reached the clearing where Lily had died. The forest felt heavier tonight, the air smelling of old rot and wet earth. He began searching the perimeter, his flashlight beam cutting through the dense fog. Near a hollow log, his boot kicked against something solid. He looked down and found Lily's professional camera, half buried in the mud. The body of the camera was smashed, but the digital memory card inside remained intact. Daniel pulled a portable tablet from his jacket, inserted the memory card, and began scrolling through the last photos Lily had taken. The first few images were of the landscape, but the final 3 photos made his blood run cold. They captured the towering white entity in crisp, high-definition detail. But as Daniel zoomed in on the creature's hands in the final photograph, his detective instincts kicked in. The entity wasn't a ghost. It was wearing heavy-duty, military-grade tactical gloves, and around its wrist was a sliver of a highly expensive, limited-edition gold watch. A ghost did not wear luxury jewelry. A sharp snap behind him made Daniel spin around, dropping the tablet into the snow. Through the thick fog, the 7-foot-tall white silhouette materialized, the featureless porcelain mask reflecting the pale moonlight. It held a massive, jagged hunting knife that gleamed with malicious intent. The entity let out that same low, rattling chuckle Lily had heard before lunging at him with terrifying speed. Daniel dodged to the left, the blade slicing through his jacket sleeve. He rolled across the forest floor, drawing his service weapon in one fluid motion. The entity turned, raising the knife for a final, lethal strike. Daniel didn't hesitate. He pulled the trigger 3 times. The loud cracks of the gunfire shattered the silence of the forest. 2 bullets hit the entity square in the chest. It gasped, a very human sound, stumbling backward before collapsing heavily onto its back, the hunting knife clattering against the stones. Daniel approached the fallen figure, his gun still aimed at its chest. The entity was bleeding crimson red onto the white snow, gasping for air. With a trembling hand, Daniel reached down and violently ripped the white porcelain mask off the face. He staggered back in absolute shock. The face beneath the mask belonged to Arthur Vance, the city's most prominent billionaire real estate mogul. "Vance," Daniel whispered, his voice shaking with rage. "Why?" Arthur Vance coughed up blood, a bitter, defeated smirk forming on his lips. He explained that the Blackwoods Forest sat on top of a massive multi-billion-dollar lithium deposit, and the city council had refused to sell the protected land to his corporation. To force the city's hand and drive the local population away, Vance had revived the old urban legend, creating the persona of the white ghost to terrorize the area and keep developers and tourists out. Lily had accidentally photographed him while he was scouting the area in his gear, capturing his face before he could put the mask on. He had hunted her down to protect his corporate empire, and he had killed the others to keep the legend alive. Daniel did not say a word. He handcuffed the bleeding billionaire to a tree root, retrieved Lily's memory card, and called for federal backup. Arthur Vance was arrested, stripped of his fortune, and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The supernatural terror that had haunted the Blackwoods for years was finally exposed as nothing more than human greed. The forest grew quiet, the dark fog finally lifting to let the morning sun shine through the ancient trees, delivering the peace and justice Lily had deserved.